So welcome everyone to codependency in your business. We're going to have a conversation about that. I'm Linda Ford, and I am here today with Adey Jones, who's a really good friend of mine and an amazing coach. And so Del, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us what you do with people.
What
What do you do?
do I do with people? Okay. Well, hi, lovely to meet everybody. I'm, as Linda said, I'm Adey Jones, and I am a three principles practitioner, and I specialize in codependency and narcissistic abuse. And I help people understand rather where the codependent thinking first took root, and we sort of like take it apart, and then we just see how it's been influencing how we've been showing up in life in all different ways, just not just in our relationships, but how we are in life, in our work, in everything we do. Codependency can sneak in. And as I said to you the other day, Linda, it's like whack-a-mole. You think you've knocked
I know, I love that. I love that comparison. It is. It's like you get it here, but it pops up here, right?
It's so true. And it's so funny. And it's, I used to say, like, okay, I've sorted it out in my relationships. And then it came up with my children. And I was like, oh my God, okay, now I have to sort of work on it here. And then it was showing up in my work. And then it shows up in my clients, my coaching clients, and how I interact with them. So it's really, we have to laugh at it, because it's just, it's just spotting it and seeing it and catching it and going, oh my God, here I go again. And
I know, that it brings to mind that statement, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
yeah,
Right? That statement that I don't know who said that, but it was so brilliant.
Yeah.
And so when I thought about the reason I came up with this idea to have this talk is because you and I have been on this coach journey now for a long time. I've been doing it for 13 years. How about you, Del? How many years is it?
I first started in 2006. So
Oh, you're older than me then.
15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 15 years. Wow. And it's like I've realized that we are in relationship with everything in life, right? It's not just our husbands and our kids and our friends and whatever. And I've seen so clearly over the years how we're in relationship with our business. I get up sometimes, get to work, and I'm grumpy with my business. I'm agitated by it. I'm turned on by it. I'm lit up by it, and I also notice that it reciprocates all the time. And then sometimes it doesn't. So it's like this unrequited love affair, so it really is like a relationship. And in preparing for this class, I kind of really had to dig deep to see how codependency was showing up. And so, I'm going to share some real vulnerable stuff today. And but first, I'd like to ask you, Del, can you give us a definition of this word? Because we throw this word around a lot, right? And we think, I thought I knew what it was, but then when I started doing some research on it, it was like, whoa, this is a whole, what's the cornucopia of stuff. So can you give us a definition? And I came up with one too, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. So, well, codependency it's, if we're talking about it, do you want it just overall or just in business?
Just overall. What do they say it is, the definition?
Well, first of all, people that suffer from codependency often have had sort of abandonment issues in their childhood or some type of abuse. We've mostly come from some sort of dysfunctional environment. We tend to suffer from low self-esteem, low self-worth. We tend to be dependent on people. We don't think we can do it alone. So we tend to attach to people and think that our strength and our security comes from another person. We look for outside validation from people. Again, it's that, low self-esteem, low self-worth. We're constantly looking for other people to tell us that we're good, that we're okay.
Right.
We're people pleasers. Again, I was going to say one of the core things of codependency is actually a fear of abandonment. So we are people pleasers because we're always trying to secure the relationship, make sure everybody likes us, nobody's going to leave us, or things like that. So we tend to put other people's needs ahead of our own. Again, it's just, a fear of being abandoned, even though as adults we can't be abandoned. But as I said, often these behaviors and this thinking has taken root from a dysfunctional childhood. So, a child can be abandoned, but as an adult, we can't. We have weak boundaries. Again, it's that fear of abandonment. If I hold the line, if I say this is, I won't cross this line, or you don't cross this line, and then people might say, well, I'm leaving then. We're like, oh, no, hang on a minute. That line doesn't exist. We move that boundary.
I'm exhausted just hearing all that. And you know what? I think I've checked all of those.
Yeah.
Personally. I mean, I don't do it so much now, but it still creeps in. But I think I've checked all of that. Let me read you the definition. This is not my definition. I found this and it really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
It says, codependency is a dysfunctional boundary pattern where you are overly invested in the feeling states, the decisions, and the outcomes of other people. And here's the bit, to the detriment of your own life or self-care.
Yeah.
Right? It can feel like something bad happening to someone else is actually happening to you. And there's an urgency to help, fix, or correct the other person's situation. So I love that. It's like codependency is a dysfunctional boundary pattern where you're overly invested in the feeling states, decisions, and outcomes of other people to the detriment of your own self.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, let me talk about that just a little more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because what it is it's, and this is what's so great when we look at it through the lens of the principles, it's actually often our own discomfort with our own emotional state that we're trying to control everybody and everything around us. Because we don't know that whatever we're feeling is transitory and it will pass. But we often think, oh my God, I can't bear this feeling. If so-and-so behaved differently, or if this happened differently, I would feel okay. So we cross that boundary and try and control everything and everybody around us so that we feel better. But again, that people pleasing, it really is. It's that if I keep you happy, you won't leave me. So again, that's
there you go. That's it. Yeah.
Of myself, we negate our own needs and wants to take care of the other person so they don't abandon us. But sometimes we get so disconnected, we don't even know what we need and want. We're just so focused on the other. So
yeah. So let's talk about how it shows up in our business then, because we know how it shows up in, say, a love relationship, right?
Yeah.
We're always trying to because like as you're talking, I know from my childhood, it definitely comes out of my childhood where I was always trying to make my mother happy. Mm-hmm. Because she was always unhappy. And I thought that if I could make her happy, then, that would solve everything. Mm-hmm. And so, and at the deeper level of that was fear that if she was really unhappy, she'd leave me and abandon me, right? Exactly. So I know where it comes from for me. But so let's talk about how it really manifests when we're in business, in our coaching business specifically.
Yeah, well, as I said, one of the core beliefs about a codependent is that we're less than, that we're not as good as other people. So our self-esteem is really in the toilet, and how that can manifest in our work is, we can feel we have imposter syndrome, we doubt ourselves, we doubt our capabilities, we start comparing ourselves to other coaches. I'm just talking specifically.
Yeah.
Coaching profession now. And then the other thing is, with this sort of constant self-consciousness or self-awareness, we can't be present to our clients because we're more interested in what's going on in our own head than listening to our clients, like, how am I doing? Did they like us? Did I? And that's the other thing I want to say. We're hyper vigilant, because often as a child we grow up in a safe, or certainly in my situation it was dysfunctional and scary and dangerous at times. So I became hyper vigilant. So you're constantly tuning in to, is there danger? Do they like me? So you're just hyper vigilant, and it's a really, it's all consuming. You can't be present. You can't be present to another person when you're trying to read the sort of danger signs or signals that are going on. And even with clients,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, even with our clients, it's like, you might say something and then you get into your head and go, oh God, did I say the right thing? Have I upset them? Are they going to want to leave me? Are they want to, it's just this whole narrative that goes on in our head.
Yeah. And the irony is that we're coaches, right? And yet we've got all this shit going on too, but it's really good. So I'm going to share a few examples of how it impacted me. And everything you said, Del, I've, from the very beginning of my business, I used to be, one of the ways it used to impact me was when I would have a client, I would always go overtime. Like they'd hire me for an hour and I would go overtime. And sometimes that would go over like half an hour, and I wouldn't charge them, And so if I look back now in hindsight and think, what was going on there? Yes, I was kind and generous and a kind person, and I was compassionate, but what was really behind that? And really what it was that, well, if I give them a little bit more and I don't charge them, then they'll really like me, they'll really come to value me. So do you have one of those stories?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And what also ties up into that one is that needless and wantless. Like everybody else's needs are more important than mine. So it's like, oh, what, you need me? You need me for an extra 15 minutes, half an hour? Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm totally cool with that. It's that sort of, or feeling bad when you have to say to somebody, we're coming to the end of our time together. It's like, it's so crazy that we would actually feel bad for having a healthy cutoff time.
Yeah. And you know what I noticed too, because I was thinking about this today, is that when I used to hire a coach, when I was a coach, and I always, I've hired coaches, I would actually be more vigilant about when the hour was up, and I would remind them, so I couldn't do it for myself, in my own clients, but I would say to them, oh, we're coming up to the end of the hour now. I would totally respect their boundaries, but I had none for my own.
Absolutely. Oh, me too. That would start, me too. It would always be like, when my eye would be on the clock going, like, I can't. That's the other thing. It's that sort of, for me, it was very much, how do I put it? I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to take more than I deserve. Playing small. So it's that sort of, being, again, overly concerned for the other person, and ending the session before it was even needed to be ended because I cared about them. Talking about as a client now, because both side coaches as well. But the other thing is, it's like what shows up is the needing the validation from outside again. And often we're doing that. We're overextending, giving more than the agreement. I mean, I don't know about you, but I always have a coaching agreement with my clients. And, it's pretty clear in there that, the sessions are this long, and give a 24-hour notice. And, the number of times where somebody's either canceled last minute or even been a no-show.
Yes.
And I've sort of like let it slide. And if it happens more than once, I definitely sort of say, hey, remind them of that. Right. I remember having a client once, though, that he wasn't showing up, like 2 days in a row, or 2 sessions rather. And then the third session, I thought, I basically said about halfway after waiting for him for about 15 minutes, I said, well, I guess you're not showing up. And he responded with, well, you could have reminded me. All I was doing was was watching what was it, Game of Thrones.
Oh gosh,
Made it
wow.
my fault that I hadn't reminded him that it was time
Yeah,
for our session. So
yeah,
it's just
interesting.
it's just crazy out there that we, so yeah, having healthy boundaries, and it's good for us and it's good for our clients, absolutely.
Yeah, and in the early days, what I used to do is I'd have my coaching session, and then after that, I would go to my computer and think, what can I send them extra? Let me find a great video or an article,
Yeah.
and I would spend hours just kind of finding stuff to give them. And
Yeah.
again, when it came right down to it, what was at the bottom of that? If I take that deep dive into it, it's like, I want to be liked. I want to be loved. I want them to think I'm amazing, that I really care about them. And so, yeah. Do you think women have this more than men?
I do. I think as a culture, we're raised to be the nurturing, the loving, the
Good
self,
girl.
yeah, the good girl, the and being selfless. So yeah, I think it's harder for women. I think it's ingrained in us, or trained. We're trained for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
I think the other ways it showed up for me. Okay, so here's a really raw one I'm going to tell you about. So and I'm going to trace it back to my childhood, because when I was a little girl, like when I was around 10, I won quite a few essay competitions. One of them was like, I actually went and had got a prize from the Queen's husband, the Duke of Edinburgh. Right. It was a big deal, right, for a 10-year-old. And I remember those early days when I had friends who would say to me, oh, you probably think you're so hot now. They didn't use that word. You're stuck up just because you got a prize from the Duke of Edinburgh, those kind of things. And then I had other experiences where I would I would be promoted into a higher class, like an advanced placement class. And the friends that I had to leave behind, the girls, I could just feel it. It's like, you must think you're too big for us now. They were projecting on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember distinctly feeling that it's really dangerous to show, to kind of turn up your dimmer switch,
Yeah.
right? To shine brightly, because
Mm-hmm.
when you do, you have the threat of losing friendships. Nobody likes you. And I've had that. I even have it today.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that resonates with you, Del, but it's like we sometimes keep that dimmer switch so low because we're afraid of people saying, oh, she's just full of herself, or who does she think she is? This kind of thing. It's like, and so it's like we kind of just remain quite small. We don't take that risk to play bigger because we want people to love us. Have you
Yeah.
had that experience?
I'm listening to you, and I totally get it. And I'm just trying to, I don't think I have a specific, I think because I was just so believed that I was unworthy and not good enough anyway. They didn't feel like there was even an opportunity to excel at anything. I think I kept myself down so much already out of sort of
Yeah.
shame and embarrassment. So it wasn't so much that for me, but I totally see that, and I get that, but again, what I'm hearing, it's that fear of abandonment. My
Yeah.
friends will abandon me if I shine. Or I think I remember, like, even very young in primary school, I remember having one friend who swore a lot in her house. And when I would go over to her house after school, I was like 6 or 7 years old, I'd swear a lot so that I'd fit in.
So you fit in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because her parents swore a lot. And I remember thinking, who am I? It's like I was such a chameleon. I was like, I'll be anything you want me to be if you will like me.
Right.
It was that thing going on. So yeah, I don't
So
know.
let's talk about the cost of all of this, right? For coaches specifically, when we are afraid to turn our dimmer switch up, right? When we're afraid to say, no, these are my fees, and it's by the hour, and we create those healthy boundaries, right? If we don't do that, if we don't protect ourselves and say no when we mean say no when we mean yes. Is that the way? No. We actually, like, if we don't want to coach someone, if we don't want to coach someone, do we have the courage to say, sorry, you're not really the kind of person I work with? That's another thing. I used to take on anyone and everyone, you know, because I couldn't say no to people.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think for sure that, and the cost of that is, well, for me, one of the biggest costs of allowing sort of some of these behaviors or patterns of behavior to sort of still dominate how we show up in life is resentment. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I remember my therapist used to say to me years ago, resentment is your body's way of letting you know that you gave more than you could afford to give.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
It's so true. And I think often, you know, people that suffer from codependency, they do have this sort of like disgruntled resentment of like, but I gave so much and they didn't, you know, appreciate me, or they didn't this, or whatever it is. So I think it's really, really important. I mean, you're not helping anybody, certainly not helping yourself or your client if you start feeling resentful. So
you're kind of burying all that, and you know, you're not really acknowledging the fact that you haven't been able to say no, right? Someone. And so that you're saying that kind of gets built up in you, and then you just end up being resentful, or you become a martyr, right? Or a victim.
Exactly. And, you know, or we do things. Yeah, I'm aware of it in my own coaching, you know, because I have worked on a sliding scale. And there's a time when I feel totally fine working on a sliding scale. But then, I mean, you know, during a session, say with a client, and you've really sort of lowered your rate. And then they start talking about how much money they're making and how and then you're sitting there going, hang on a minute, you've just had me reduce my rate by 50% because you said you were going through, and I've just heard that you have like 3 massages a week and you do this and you do that.
Or they're going on vacation somewhere. Yeah, that's happened to me many times. So yeah, and then that's when the resentment comes up, right?
Exactly. And that's no one else's fault but our own.
But I was just going to say that we say it's your fault, you know, I gave you all this, but it's actually not. It's our fault.
No, it's our fault for having, you know, and I even, you know, I've noticed that collecting money. I mean, that's the other thing. Say if somebody, I'll say sell a package of 10 or something, and they'll say, can we split it into 2 payments? Then, you know, that halfway mark turns up, and you're basically saying, can you pay for the other half? And feelings will come up with me around that, about asking for money. So it's interesting. It's so interesting to see where it's sort of, and then other people might not have any of these issues whatsoever. They're just so fine with it. It's like, no, this is the way
they've got nothing on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what do we do about it, Del? Like when we see it, we see it playing out, right? It comes up and we notice it, we feel it. What do we do about it?
I think, well, first of all, be gentle with ourselves is the first thing I would say. You know, it is an ingrained habitual pattern of behavior. So, and I think just gentle with ourselves. It's like, and having a sense of humor of like, oh my God, here it goes again. It's raised its head.
Yeah.
It's just an opportunity to grow and to step into your power, and just see that you are entitled to be paid for the work that you do. You are, it's okay to have, you know, we don't have to give 150% or 200%. 100% is good enough, and it's great. And it's, for me, it's an opportunity to, as I say, to move beyond these habitual patterns that have been controlling us, and having us negating our own needs and wants, having us dim our light, or whatever it is, those feelings of sorry, I'm croaking here. So I think that's what I would say, is it's just an opportunity to evolve and to grow.
Yeah, so the first thing is just self-awareness, right? Just noticing that it's happening. And like you said, it's like, oh, there's that thing again. There's that pattern I keep falling into, that habitual pattern. Isn't it interesting how it shows up? And taking opportunity to practice separating yourself from it, stand back and detangle yourself from it, because you can see what it is. It's just old patterns of behavior, right? Patterns of thinking about yourself.
I think the principles are what is so incredibly important here, because, when we really know that we are all equal at our essence, we're all equal. Nobody is more than or less than another. That it takes away that need to prove yourself. It takes away that need to sort of get outside validation. And then another thing that can happen is we can sort of base our self-worth on, do we have a full client list? Or if it sort of goes down a bit, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, does this mean I'm not a good coach? It's like, no, this has nothing to do with you. It's just, it's life, ebbs and flows. Sometimes you're a bit busier, sometimes you're not so busy. But I think remembering that we are all equal at our essence stops a lot of the codependent behavior. It certainly did for me.
Yeah, and I also think that, and this comes from just, having experience coaching, just knowing the value that you actually bring to people, like really getting tuned into your worth, right? So that you don't feel like because you were saying earlier how it's just insecurity, low self-worth, right? Like just kind of really look at that, like where is that? Where is that self-worth coming from? Where do you feel those gaps in your coaching? Just kind of take opportunity to kind of get more grounded in your coaching, maybe, and so that you don't feel like you have to scurry around and give your clients everything that you have under the sun. Maybe it's just enough to have 150-minute coaching session, and that's good enough. Oh, the other thing that really comes up that I don't want to miss is coaches, and this is the codependency thing, is this whole mindset that if my client doesn't experience a transformation, that's my fault. I've got to make sure that they really do have experience change, sustainable change. Otherwise, there's something wrong with me and my coaching. Could you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm thankfully I don't have that one either.
I used to. I don't have it anymore.
yeah, because I'm trying to think about looking back over my clients right now. If because some people have massive sort of insights, and some people not so much. But for me, I'm very, very patient with meeting with people where they're at. I have no expectation of them. It's just, but let me go to another thing that might tie into this, is this thinking that we are doing something, that we have something somebody else doesn't have. I think reminding ourselves and remembering that we all came onto the planet. Not only are we all equal, but we all have equal access to our well-being, our resilience, and our wisdom. And, it's really not our job to fix anybody. It's like,
and we can't.
We can't, exactly.
It comes from within them, right?
Exactly. And we're all equal, as I say. Nobody, sometimes when we rush to rescue, we're actually getting in the way of somebody tapping into their own resilience, their own wisdom.
Yes, good point. That's a great point. Yeah, because I've had this conversation with a lot of coaches. I've heard it again and again. Like I've been coaching this person now for months, a year, and she still doesn't get it. What's wrong? I mean, how do we? I mean, that's a lot to carry on your shoulders, right there, isn't it? It's like you're not responsible for their insights. And how do you know when they're going to have an insight? They might have a coaching session with you for 6 months and not have any insight, and then a year later the penny will drop. That's what she was talking about. So we have no control over that. And I think that, here's another thing I just want to say, because this is so common with women. is that we're so kind and compassionate. We're so kind-hearted and we're compassionate and we want to help everyone. And let's just be clear that we can be that way and still have boundaries, right? Because when you cross over that line to codependency, that's when it gets mucky and murky for you as a coach. So being able to see that nice, clean line that you don't cross doesn't mean that you can't be kind and compassionate, right? Because I think a lot of women.
Well, I think there's yeah, we're buying into a myth of what compassionate and loving and caring looks like.
Yeah,
we're being told that it means that you drop everything and you go in and you rescue. Well, I often think it's almost like, when you pass sort of, there's somebody stuck in a hole, okay, and there's a piece of rope hanging out the hole and they're screaming, grab the other end of the rope, grab the rope, help me out of this hole. And sometimes, we can do that and we can just pull and the other person will pull us in the hole with them. Or the reality is they could have scrambled out of that hole on their own. But when we keep going to rescue, we're denying the other person the ability to tap into their strengths, as I say, their wisdom. But when we rescue, we are actually doing it. It's quite selfish to rescue because we want to feel good.
Yeah, that's when the ego comes in, right? Oh, I did that for them.
Yeah, and we're uncomfortable with their discomfort. So we rescue when we see our clients, they're uncomfortable. Whereas sometimes the kindest, most loving thing to do is to sort of zip it up and just allow them to be uncomfortable for a while so that they can have those insights, have their own access to their own wisdom. But sometimes we're uncomfortable. We want to fill in the gaps. So
yeah, in fact, I heard an interview on the news last week. A neuroscientist was saying that a lot of parents are doing this to their kids, helicopter parents, right? We're not giving our kids, and I apply this to coaches too. We need to allow our clients to have that space of uncertainty so that they can have, like you're saying, have that insight. But when we come in and rescue them and, comfort them and whatever, it's like we get in the way. And I love what you're saying. It's like we get in the way of them discovering their resiliency and tapping into their wisdom that's right for them, right? Because what's right for them may be different from what's right for me. Yeah. So good to know.
Yeah.
So, so go ahead.
No, I was just saying there was something else. It just escaped my mind. It'll pop in again a bit later, I think. But yeah, it's so interesting how it shows up in all different ways. But again, I think just being really gentle with ourselves and just like, this is a lifetime of habits that some of us have been in. So the fact that we might find ourselves back there is just, just an opportunity.
Well, I always say, Del, that this entrepreneurial journey that I've been on has been the biggest catalyst for my stuff coming up. And even though I'm a coach, all my stuff comes up, which is great because I'm really getting to see it, whereas if I was just kind of laid back or not doing this work or doing something that wasn't challenging, then maybe it wouldn't come up. I don't know. But it is a catalyst for that. And so, my advice, if I can give advice to coaches, is if you do see all your shit coming up and you're thinking, oh, that's not what coaches are supposed to be, rest assured it is. Because the more you get to deal with your stuff, the better coach you're going to be. Yeah. So
I know what it was that I was going to add to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Another thing is, often it depends on how long the coaching relationships can go on for, but sometimes there's some transference or projection going on in that relationship. So again, it's really, really important to remember that because codependence, we can sometimes take things personally, but just to remember separate realities, and that if somebody's having a reaction to you or a resistance or I remember a client sort of getting upset with me because she thought I was taking the side of her ex-husband, and it was like I got I got some emails about that, and I didn't even know him.
Yes.
But it was really important for me to just go, okay, this is not personal.
Yeah.
She's triggered here, and this is what's going on, and it will settle. And all I can do is, again, it's maintain healthy boundaries and not sort of just clarify maybe if there was some misunderstanding, but to not get drawn into that, because that sometimes can happen.
That's a really good point that you're bringing up, because I think it's really important for coaches to realize that we are not a coaching session is not a buddy session where you just sit there and listen to someone complain about their problems.
Mm-hmm.
The more, like you said, the more neutral we can remain, and objective, that's what we're not there to say, oh, poor you, that must be terrible what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
We want to look at things very cleanly without all that, personal stuff interfering.
Yeah.
Which is why you never really coach your friends or your family, right? It doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
I've done it, actually. I'm okay with it.
Oh, okay. But, all right. You coach your sons?
No, not my sons, because they haven't asked me to. But I've had friends and family members, siblings, ask me to coach them, and I've been very clear. It's like I wear a very different
coach hats. Yeah,
I wear my coach hat. It's very different. So for one of my sisters, I coached her for about a year, and we'd have a regular time. It would be that was our coaching session, and it would be like the clock is on. I'm your coach. And then if you want to stay on afterwards for a 15-minute chat, we can do that.
Right.
But I treated it there was very clear boundaries, because for me, it feels so different. Just feels very different. So I can do it. I can slip into that mode very well.
Okay, that's wonderful. So listen, I just want to take a moment here for people listening. These kinds of conversations that Del and I are having, I have a private Facebook group called The Untethered Coach. And if any of you have read The Untethered Soul, it's all about freeing yourself, having that freedom. And so what Del and I are talking about here is just lightening your load, right? Can you imagine showing up as a coach without all that codependency stuff really, bearing down on you? So it's about that lightness of being. And these are the kinds of conversations that we have in the private Facebook group that I have put together. It's a safe container for coaches, especially coaches out there who tend to be more introverted, like me. I'm an introvert. I also have an extroverted side, but I'm mainly introvert. And it's to help coaches really learn how to be more grounded with their clients, and how to feel more ease and freedom about putting yourself out into the world to let people know about your services, because ultimately that's what we have to do. We have to let the world know. So if you're interested in being part of this group, you can just Facebook message me and I'll invite you to join, because we've got some good stuff going on there. So I'm going to end on a lighter note here. Not that that's not light, because I think when you talk about these subjects, Del, it's kind of comforting. It's like, whoa, just see what's been driving me, and now I can see it for what it is and come at my work in a lighter mode, right? But I've got some questions for you to end this little session.
Mm-hmm.
So can you, what's one of your favorite books? And it doesn't have to be a self-helpy book. What's one of your favorite books that you could recommend we read?
Oh boy. That's an interesting one.
Anything come to mind?
Yeah, I'll just say the first thing that popped in my head for whatever reason, The Prophet. I just love.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I read that years ago. Yeah,
it's
lovely.
Yeah,
okay.
So that's what popped in my head. It's a classic. It's beautiful.
What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite podcast?
I'm not very good today, am I? I'm trying to think. I don't listen to that many podcasts, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Hang on a minute. Talking about podcasts. Well,
Oh
my
yeah,
own.
oh yes, yeah. So Del and I are. Go ahead, tell
I was
them.
going to say, besides my own podcast, which obviously is one of my favorites, the Insightful Conversations, there's going to be a new podcast that's coming about. So, Linda, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, Del called me up one day and said, "Hey, would you like to do a podcast with me?" And I thought, why not? You know, sounds great. Del and I've always said, Del and I are cut from the same cloth. You know, we're both Brits living in the US. She's on the West Coast living in Malibu, and I'm on the East Coast living in Rockport. We're both on the ocean. And we've both had a very similar kind of upbringing, especially with regards to men and relationships. So there's a lot in common. And we're both coaches, obviously, and more or less the same age. I'm a little bit older than you, but we're both in our 60s, right? And so it's just, I keep saying it, cut from the same cloth. And so we thought we're going to come together and have a conversation, do a podcast. And it's probably going to be called Secrets of a Life Gone Right. So we're going to share everything we know, what we've been through, about how we've navigated ourselves and finally landed on our feet in this life, because we have decades to share. Do you want to say anything about it, Del?
No, just that exactly. Just, we have such we have so many overlaps where we share very similar relationship issues and things like that, and different ways of life as well. You're a mother to fur babies. I'm a mother to two sons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of commonalities and a lot of differences. So I'm really excited. I think we're going to be having some fabulous conversations, just on all sorts of topics, like the three principles, like spirituality, like codependency, like, million things that we can
yeah, your business, your love life, your relationships, your money. And we're going to talk about how the principles, how that feeds through all of that. So stay tuned for that. So another question for you. What are you really, really good at, Del? Go on. And so this is something I meant to mention in our conversation. We've got to get used to bragging. I was trained by Martha Beck, and when we started our training with her, every class we came onto, the first thing she'd start with is, okay, I'm going to go, everybody's going to brag about something about themselves, because it's this codependency. Like, I don't want to brag, don't want to, puff myself up. So go ahead, Del, brag. What are you really good at?
Well, I'm really good at coaching people that suffer from codependency and narcissistic abuse. That one I know I'm really good at, because it's my lived experience. It's what I know inside and out. In my every sort of cell of my being, I understand it. I have incredible amounts of compassion and wisdom to share. So that's something I'm really good at. And the other one that popped in my head is loving. I'm really loving. I love being loving. That is something that comes very, very naturally to me.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And it really speaks to the fact that coaches choosing a niche that they can really identify with and relate to, because you're going to just help your clients so much more. And so, you're choosing this niche. Maybe it chose you, I don't know, but
it chose me.
It's the best way. It's really the best way to be. Okay. What are you really, really bad at?
Well, I would say I'm a bad writer, but I've stopped saying that now. I'm
not.
I'm a writer that takes I take a long time to write. That's my issue, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad writer. What am I bad at? Dancing. I have no rhythm.
Really?
Oh, I'm terrible.
Oh, wow. I would never have thought that of you. Interesting.
Maybe I'm being hard on myself too. What am I really bad at? I'm really bad at swimming in the Pacific Ocean. I've lived here for 40 years and I've only been in it 3 times.
See that? That's me too. I never swim in the ocean, and I live by the ocean.
Yeah, me too. I love to walk on it. I exercise on the beach. I stare at it, but I don't like going in the ocean. So,
last question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite comfort food?
Pizza.
Okay. Any kind?
It's got to be really artisan, really and crusty, chewy crust.
Okay.
I don't eat it very often because I'm so picky. So thankfully it has to be. We have somewhere called Jelena in LA, which is amazing. But if it's not like that, then I wouldn't eat it. And then maybe avocados. I love avocados. So
yeah, me too. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, so we know a little bit more about Del Adey Jones, right?
I want to ask the same questions of you now. Why don't we wrap it up on that?
But we'll leave that for another time.
Okay.
So although I'll say one thing I'm really, really bad at is following instructions. Like if I get a piece of machinery or furniture that I have to put together, I don't follow instructions. I can't stand it. I have no patience.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I can't follow a recipe.
No, I can't follow a recipe either. I'm a quick start. What you call a quick start?
No, everything is pinch taste. That's how I cook. So, and I'm always making stuff up, and I'm actually a really good cook. So,
me too.
but when it comes to building furniture, I have to say I love that, and I love following those directions.
No, if you give me directions, point, do this, do that, oh, it's so impatient with it. So good to know. But anyway, so listen, guys. Hopefully this conversation is making you feel a little bit lighter. You don't have to be codependent. You don't have to do all that stuff. You can just let it go and you're okay. You'll be okay. You'll still be compassionate. You'll still have a big heart for your clients. And in fact, you'll actually be even better for them. So lighten your load. And again, please message me if you want to be part of the Untethered Coach. Del, thank you so much. Yeah, so Andrea, what resonated with you? Go ahead.
The whole thing resonated with me. Thank you so much. And it just was the perfect timing because I'm working with a client right now, and pretty much everything you described is something that I've done in the recent time with her, even, as simple as receiving all kinds of emails. And, some of these emails it could take a half hour, an hour for me to read and respond. And I was feeling like I can't not respond. If I don't respond, then I'm not being nice, or she might go to another coach, or she might not get value. And I realized it was a lot of hours that I wasn't getting paid for. But I loved what you said, Del, about our body telling us that resentment, right? And that's exactly what it was. I went to my supervisor to say, like, what do I do about this? And my supervisor said, take a look at your own, whatever's going on with you. And actually she said your own codependency. And then this came up into my inbox and I was like, there you go. It's meant to be that I come on this call today. So thank you so much.
So let me just say pick up on one thing you said there, Andrea. So when you start, so Andrea's she's going to be starting as a coach on eating disorders, right?
Yes, food addiction primarily.
Food addictions. Yeah. Okay. So when you come to structure your pricing, think about, obviously if you spend 50 minutes or 60 minutes with a client, think about the back end as well. Like what I used to do is say, for this price, you get 50 minutes of live coaching with me, plus unlimited email back and forth in the week. Okay. But I added the price in to contribute to that, to include that.
Right. Yeah.
So that way you don't have this feeling like you're working overtime for the, so just consider that as your hourly rate. Include that.
Can I add something in this too?
Yeah.
Because what reasonable email support to one person is not to another.
Yeah.
And I have also had clients that send me reams. I mean, it's like books out of a book that I have to sort of spend hours going through. And one of the times when somebody got upset with me was when I, out of all this stuff about was I tried to respond to the email. So what I do now is I don't do email support. And if I do receive an email, I will say, I'll say something very supportive, like, I can see how this is very upsetting to you. Let's talk about this in our next session.
Yes.
Things can be misinterpreted in emails. And that's what I realized with this other client, was she took something the wrong way, and which was definitely not my intention. So I think it just clears it all up, because I do think that in texts and emails, we miss things.
The nuances, yeah.
The nuances. So I don't know, that was just my experience. And again, it was because sometimes it was a couple of emails, and sometimes it was like every day, here's this. And it was like, I can't, this doesn't justify the
yeah, I don't do it anymore, but in my early days I did it. And so yeah, and I love what you're saying, Del, because you just even just posting something on Facebook, so many people misinterpret you and take it the wrong way, and you lose some of the meaning,
Mm-hmm.
So there are coaches, who just do email coaching. Did you know that?
No.
I know quite a few of them. I don't know how they do it.
So
anything
helpful.
else, Andrea?
No, just I love that piece about the email too, because it's just interesting. Like, this same client had started with texting, and I made the mistake. I learned the lesson by responding, that then it was like this person was texting as if, I loved what you said, Linda. It's like, we aren't their buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And this person was texting as if it was a personal relationship. And so I did put the boundary in place around that. And then the emails started, and the emails are just, exactly as you described it. Like, I mean, reams and reams on articles that this person wants me to read because they think it will help them. And so this has been really helpful for me. Like I said, just the perfect time, because it all came up quite recently, and I'll be in a session with this person on Friday. So I'm ready to put it all into action.
Yeah.
It brings up maybe the necessity of, on your website, if you do have a website, and you can do this very gently and nicely, it doesn't have to be a rude statement or anything, but just kind of really explain the role of a coach. Like, if you could put it like, have you ever been coached before? If not, let me just explain what that dynamic is, what the relationship is between coach and client. We're not buddies. You're not gonna, I'm here to help you, to be objective. And, something like that, just a real clarifying statement that you could say very nicely.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I have my, again, because of my codependency, I know that I can be, I have a coaching agreement that I have somebody sign. It's very nice. They're not signing away their firstborn or anything like that. But it really is just to sort of clarify those sort of boundaries of things like what's to be expected out of the coaching relationship, the commitment, the cancellation, everything, because I just think it's really important. They've read it, they've seen it. So if you do have to bring it up again, they're not offended. It's a very gentle sort of, as we agreed in the coaching agreement, this is the way it goes, or however you want to word it. But it's very helpful.
Thank you so much.
Okie doke. Well, thank you, Andrea, and best of luck with your efforts, and keep in touch with us, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we're going to end right now. I have a client at 4 o'clock, so I better go. All right, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Del. Thank you so much.
And you
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.